Hello, dear ones. Hi, it's Alyce Dylan. You're at the Indigo Rose Lounge. Well, aren't you a shiny soul? And remember, this is a special space because of the work I do, because of the energy work and the work I do with souls from the next place. The space is specially charged. And so if you're a Shodan Okudan Reiki student, you may know how that's possible. Reiki Master certainly would. So, this space, if you arrive here and just want to receive and have an intention to receive, you will have access here to healing and upliftment and comfort and whatever it is that you. So, just being in this space hopefully will give you access to a boost for your day. I wanted to have a little touch on the nature of the Indigo Adult. And the souls who will know what I'm talking about here are those who have been awakened or aligned for a time and have been working with their sixth sense, their spiritual perception for a little while, getting into alignment, knowing what that's like, trying to keep their frequency high. One of the special things that we do as indigos is we live life backwards. That is a really unique situation. I realized the other day listening to one of my favorite channels on YouTube, Chase Hughes, who's a neuroscientist, and I believe is now emerging into his indigo being. Maybe he was an indigo child who might have shut it down for a while. And I think now in his healing journey, he's really emerging into his full indigo adulthood. But he's very much almost a white coat. He's gone on a very interesting journey to truth and learning. The perspective I find interesting while listening to Chase Hughes is how he will describe, for example, how to spot someone telling a lie or someone telling the truth. He also goes into how to spot a psychopath or a narcissist, etc. So he looks at physical indicators of people's processes. What I always find interesting when I watch him is it feels to me like, okay, so if someone shows up in my environment and they're dishonest, I will immediately know that they are being dishonest. And then listening to his explanation, I'll know how 5 sense people could also figure that out. So if you had no sixth sense at all, if you had no spiritual perception, there would be a way to figure that out. But it's detailed, and you would have to learn a lot of stuff, and you would need to have an encyclopedic memory, and he does. He has this incredible attention to detail. But it almost feels like the indigos go straight there. We don't need all of the minutiae. We don't need the detail. We just know. But then when we know, we allow the why to fill in later. So I'll give you an example from my life. There is a large food chain that ended up in my part of the world long after it was in many other places. But from the moment I saw it, I just knew that I would never consume anything from that chain. And no one I knew, no one I cared about, I would not participate in anyone I cared about's consumption of their produce. I didn't know why, I didn't have the detail of that, I just knew it the way all clairsentients know stuff. We just know it. We just know this is the way. This is the way. And over the next couple of years, I heard a few things, like this particular chain had caused mass devastation in a part of South America, and I love trees. So I thought, oh, maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I won't ever have anything to do with it. And then, in more recent years, more information came out about an analysis of the contents of their food. Then I really knew why I wouldn't have anything to do with their produce. So we get to live things backwards, which often is a leap of faith. because we will arrive in a situation and just know that our answer to this is not that we are not willing or will not choose to participate in or with something. And that decision is a feeling and it's a knowing. And if we've learned to trust our knowing, it's an absolute. There's no way to convince us. If we have worked with our fairies long enough, we know that this is a hard line and there's no crossing this. But we often won't find out the why for a very long time. And so these programs like Chase Hughes are interesting because they help to fill in some of the why, not necessarily by the signs to identify, but when he explains the framework or the origin or the motivation of certain categories of people, we can understand why our impulse or our knowing was not to participate in this particular group or in a group of people. And this applies right across the board. It can apply to something like as simple as toothpaste. Just knowing that you won't use this brand, and you're standing in the store and you have 100 different things in front of you. Just having the impulse to, no, I won't participate there, I don't want that, I want this one. And often we'll just go with an impulse. And then later down the line, a year or two down the line, we will find out why we had that impulse. So yeah, we kind of live backwards. We have the capacity to live backwards. And when you learn to trust that, when you've experienced it enough, and you've learned to trust it, then you will have access to guidance that is cosmic, is beautiful. I don't think I could count the number of health problems or deficits I've avoided, both for me and for my loved ones, by simply following my sentience. So we do know. We have access to knowing. And how we get to clarify that knowing and really make it clear both for ourselves and for the people around us is just to follow it and to test it out. We follow it, we test it out, and then we figure it out. We have a little game in my home, which is that I will be asked, what do you think about this person? And I'll usually say, nah, never did like that person, never got a good feeling about them. It'll emerge that they're involved in one of these scandalous, horrible, icky things that are coming out. And so far, I've got 100% success rate with that. It's just knowing. You just look at these people, even if they're acting and trying to be something else, just know at some level that there's something wrong here. And you would not like to be subjected to that wrongness, or you can't stand to expose yourself to the energy that they carry or hold. And so I'm sure if we look back into childhood, we can remember encounters with creepy adults, adults that we were exposed to that we just thought, ew, or there's something wrong here, or yeah, don't leave me alone with this person. And then later we would have received the information on why we got that feeling. So from childhood, we may have learned already to trust our evaluation of others. I know that I can have the briefest encounters with people, and it's not coming from a place of judgment. I'm not saying that I meet someone and I judge them. I just meet someone and my red flags go up and I think, okay, put a pin in there. There's something there. And when I revisit that knowing, after some time, I'll understand why. So trusting ourselves is a huge component of that, because we can often end up kicking ourselves if we heard the intuition, if we knew when we encountered a thing or a person or an environment, and we knew that there was something wrong here and we didn't listen, we often end up, I hear from client students all the time who say to me, oh, and I knew better, and I didn't trust it. And that's why it's really important for us to go through the process of small things. Something I've worked a lot with in my life is cards. working with, and I'm not necessarily saying tarot because there's a lot of things associated with tarot cards that some people can be put off by, but there are some lovely cards available now that are not necessarily tarot and don't have scary on many different traditions. And there are even cards based on spiritual teaching. And using those cards in your daily practice can really assist you to clarify, to hone in on what is being imparted to you, what you're receiving, or the information that you're receiving. So there are these external tools that we can use to help narrow down when we just get a ick feeling. We don't know why, and we feel like we need to drill down. Things like cards can be very useful in that process. And I have a warning here, because cards, if they help with clarity and if they help to uplift and inspire you and make you feel good, they're great. Many people use cards as a crutch and allow them to fill them with fear. And I would say to you, if you get to a point of using cards daily or 3 times a day, stop. Give yourself a month where you take off and you don't do cards, because there can be an off-ramp in the use of cards for fear. And we remember, we're not doing fear. We're not doing fear. Especially right now, there's lots to fear. If we want to fear something, there's 10 million things out there that we could fear. So we're taking the rebel road of harnessing love and joy instead. There's going to be lots of people fearful. There's going to be a lot of people on the fear platform. Let's just stay on the less crowded side, okay? Because also we know that the frequency we choose really impacts our daily life. So if you want to make a choice for yourself today that is going to make life better, it's to choose love. When you see fear, pivot. What I would like to see a whole lot more of on social media, on people's expressions everywhere, is not so much pointing at what we don't want, but what do we want. So this group of shiny bums over here just did this horrible thing. Okay, let's pivot. What do we want? Well, we want the shiny bums, maybe, all to be sent to an island where they get to cannibalize each other. Maybe that's what we want. I'm joking, half joking. I'm saying that what we want to do is not stand staring at the accident that's happened or is happening. We want to look at the tragedy briefly as possible and pivot and say, this is what we want. We want a world that is free, full of self-determination. We want people to be able to choose for themselves how they live their lives. And we want genuine scientific exploration. We want science not funded by the people who are going to profit from the science going one way or another way. They want true, meaningful scientific exploration. We want world peace. Would be great. Of course, we would have to get rid of the shiny bums first, because they will not allow peace in the world. They just won't. And so there's not a lot of us can do about the train wrecks that are going on. What we can do is we can continue to work on ourselves. We can decide what we want for ourselves. And we can maintain a high frequency so that when we get to a day when there is something that you or I can do about the world, we will be solid and ready to step up and do it. That's got to be our focus, people. It's the only thing that makes sense right now. All right. I'm going to get off my podium for today. Gosh, I really went on a bit of a bender there. But you know what I'm saying. Really, there is no other choice but to love always.